Dear listeners, once again we are back with another story by our favorite superstar creator Travis, aka Malicious Logic 3740. So without taking any more time, let's start the story. Kevin Smith continued to work on the car in his garage, a 1971 Chevelle. It has been in the family for generations. People would say that he worked on it to look cool, and it was an epic car. And they would be right, just partially. For Kevin, it was his time of peace and tranquility every time he worked on that car. It was not just doing a hobby. For him, it was like spending time with a family member who he loved. With the fact that both his parents died, whom he loved very much, this time was essential for him. Kevin Smith was of Irish and Polish descent. Standing at 5'9", he was heavy into boxing in his high school years and kept up with his routine and muscular physique after all these years. He could have gone pro, but he lacked the drive to do so. So, he focused his work on cars and engineering. Out of all the cars he loved, it was his Chevelle. He remembered how his dad would get him out of school early if he did good, and they would drive and hang out that day in the very car. Go to movies, theme parks, see sights in and out of the city. It was their magic time. His dad even met Kevin's mother in the very car. Kevin was even conceived in the car, a fact that Kevin had to laugh at. Every time he heard that powerful engine, he would hear his father. How his father would break down in detail because he loved that car. How its 700-powered horsepower with 500-pound FT of torque and pure steel frame was a true road bully. And its roaring engine coming to life was like seeing a great beast letting the world know that it has awoken. And he loved every minute of it. He looks at the picture frame in the garage. It is him and his parents when he was a boy. His mother, a beautiful Polish woman with a thick accent. Her raven hair to her shoulders, wearing her white and buell button-up short-sleeve shirt and jeans, her beautiful and loving smile on one side. His father, a burly man of Irish descent, a few tattoos on his arms as he wears his signature dark blue tank top shirt with its white outlines, with his own loose-fit jeans, and his humorous but loving smirk of a smile. And then there was little Kevin, his missing front baby teeth and Chester cat smile as he wears his Ninja Turtle t-shirt and jeans. The photo was taken by a friend in the family garage, in front of this same car that connected them all. He looks at the photo as a tear falls down his cheek as he smiles. Those were better days. I miss you both so much. His parents, Luke and Maria Smith, died right after he graduated from high school in a bank robbery gone wrong. The robber ran out of the bank and bumped into Kevin's parents, knocking everyone over and making the cash fly everywhere. Out of frustration and the fact they could identify him, he shot and killed them both in cold blood. The robber was killed in a shootout with police that same day, but it didn't change the devastation Kevin felt since then. He had Shelley though. Shelley. He almost breaths the name rather than say it, as if remembering a past storm. Then the memories come back again. How everything happened that brought him to this moment. All the pain, the betrayal, and the insanity of it all. And how, despite how heartbreaking it was, thankful that his parents were not alive to see it. Especially all that has happened to him these past years. My God, has it been so long? He says to himself. All these years, from that day, he knew it had come to an end. As he was reflecting on that fact, he heard something approaching his driveway. The footsteps seemed hard and determined, possibly aggressive. He lifted his head just in time to see a young woman no older than 27. She is a woman of German-American descent, with blonde hair that is cut short to her ears, blue heavenly eyes, and a beautiful lean and fit body. He did not know who she was, but by the look of her face she was angry, of what he was not aware. He was also irritated that this stranger just felt the need to walk into his garage and looking at him as if he had done something wrong. Can I help you? The woman just stares daggers at him before you finally spoke. You, selfish scumsucker. Kevin did not have much patience with people, especially those who were rude to him. Look, angry lady who is pissed off at me for some reason. I don't know why, nor do I care, but it is time for you to leave. The woman then suddenly runs towards him, slapping and punching him. The woman was not just angry but enraged. You scumsucker. Sorry, sack of shit. How could you? However, she underestimated that her gender and emotions would give her a hidden sense of immunity of retaliation from the man she was striking. In a smooth motion, Kevin grabbed her hand in mid-strike, then twisted it, then brought it behind her back. The moment she yelped from the harsh pain, he then slammed her hard on a wooden table on her right cheek. Sensing the fight was out of her, he spoke calm but stern into her ear. Okay, let's stop that. As you can probably guess, I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to defending myself from random people, men and women who want to go ape shit on me for no reason. Here is what is going to happen. I'm going to let you go, and we are going to talk about why you took it upon yourself to ruin what was supposed to be a day off and give me this bullshit. Because it is not every day, I have a random stranger accuse me of being a scumsucker and is dumb enough to attack me in my own home. You are lucky that I forgot my flat head was on the opposite side of the car, because I would have introduced said flat head to your neck. The coldness of his voice brought her back to reality and showed her how her emotions taking control of her could have cost her life. As a result, a chill runs down her spine. So, I'm going to let you go now. But if I feel so much as a twinge and hear so much as complaint, I'm going to break what little arm you have left, toss you outside, call the cops, and have you charged so fast and with so much shit it will make your head spin. And before you say anything, look up. He directs her attention to the mounted cameras she failed to notice due to her outburst. She then realized her mistake, knowing that the whole thing was recorded. Not only would she be beating up broken arm and all, but also arrested and charged for assault. It would not matter if he was a man. He would be seen as defending himself against an unknown assailant. So, are we good? The woman under him nods her head, a look of acceptance on her face. Kevin then lets the woman go, and she gathers herself as Kevin walks away for a moment, making his way to the cooler. He returns with 2 glasses of Cokes. However, he also makes sure she sees him put a flathead screwdriver in his pocket. She nods in understanding that if she tries anything like she did again, he will follow suit by defending himself by any means. He opens the bottle and hands it to her. As she takes a swig, he speaks. So do you usually say hello by cussing people out then attacking them? Or is it more to it than that? The woman was taken by the comment, but then she spoke. You are right. I should not have greeted you the way I did. For that I apologize. But Coke or not, I don't apologize for telling the truth. You are a piece of shit. The woman felt her anger rise, but then recalled what just happened a few moments ago, and recalled how it did not work out. That added with the hilt of the flathead poking out of Kevin's pocket made her think twice of her actions again. Well, I admire your honesty, even if it is coming out of horses, but I respect it. Any particular reason why you have this sense of hostility? The woman looked at him dumbfounded, as if he told her to twist her arms off then do a handstand. My God, you really have forgotten us, have you? Kevin was confused. It's me, Kate, your daughter. Kevin's eyes widened, taken aback from what he had just heard. The shock had hit him in all corners of his mind. But just as fast as his emotions had consumed him, they were replaced by acceptance. Hello, Kate. I would ask how your mother is doing, but that would be a lie, due to the fact I could care less. On instinct, Kate swung to hit him, only for her hand to be caught by him again, wincing as his grip tightened around her wrist. Kate, we been know this. Clearly, I did not know who you are, and would have acted differently if I had. But that does not change the fact that I will not be assaulted or abused in my own home. He then released her. She took it back immediately and rubbed her hand, then let the tears fall before she spoke. Why? Why did you leave us? I have just spent my holiday week with my grandparents. And when I come back, Mom is in the living room crying, and you were just gone. When she snapped out of it, she told me you had just left us, with no excuse or reason. That you found some bitch on the side and had left us in the dust. I just don't understand why someone who I loved would hurt me like that. Why do you hate me so much that you would crush me in such a way? Do you know what it was like growing up without you? Seeing other kids with their dads on their birthdays. Wishing my dad was there for me when my first boyfriend Jamie Copper dumped me because I wouldn't put out. Or how I see other dads be there for their daughter's prom to send them off. I stayed away so no one would see me cry. No dad to watch me walk across the stage to get my diploma. Or show me how to keep up with my bills or help me get my first car. No dad to tell me he loves me, and it will be okay when I'm almost sexually assaulted by someone I thought was my friend, only to find out he had a thing for me, just waited until I passed out on a couch at a party. He only stopped when I came to, and someone else came into the room by accident. He had just taken my pants off then, and as I got up and ran out of there, the one thing on my mind is that I wish my daddy was here. A sympathetic look came into Kevin's eyes as he looked at Kate. I'm sorry you went through that, Kate. He then got up and walked into the door leading into the kitchen. Kate was too busy crying in her hands to notice as she spoke of memories that hurt her for so long. When she calmed down, she looked up and around to find that he was gone. Hey, where are you? Where did you go? Kate then slumped down again, convinced that he was done with her. She cursed herself, believing it was a mistake coming here. She had just got up from her seat when she saw the door open, and Kevin walked through it. In his hands was a binder, folders inside it were organized. The binder looked like it had dust in it, or that it was hidden away somewhere for years. Kevin looked at her before he spoke. Are you hungry? I made a few sandwiches to go along with our drinks. Also, we need to talk. The two finished their meals, and then Kevin looked into her eyes and spoke. Kate, I'm giving this binder to you after I'm done talking. What you do after that is completely up to you. Just know that whatever you decide, know that I never wanted to hurt you, but at the same time did what I had to. Are you ready for what I have to say? Kate took a moment to think about his words and the gravity behind them. She then spoke. Okay, say what you have to. And with that, Kevin began the story of what brought the two of them together at this moment. I was born in St. Louis, lived there most of my early life. My parents were both immigrants of Irish and Polish descent who had just finalized their citizenship when they had me after dating for a year. My father was a gifted mechanic who had a knack for cars. My mother was a science teacher, both major influence of my life. Because of them, I would gain a love of cars and the means of how they and everything else runs. In time, I would skip a grade and graduate early because I wanted to know more. I would dive headfirst into auto mechanics and engineering, and my parents were there for me every step. Then one day, a few shots of my 18th birthday, my parents were killed by a bank robber. To say that I was devastated was an understanding. After the funeral, I took the inheritance. They left me and made my way east to York, Pennsylvania. This is where I would meet your mother. Kate took a breath at the words. She realized she never heard about her dad's parents that much. She then let him continue. Your mother, Christina McKenzie, walked into the shop I was working in one day. To say she was beautiful would not be enough. Kevin recalled when he first saw her. She was Scottish-American, dark hair but blue eyes. A fit and lean build due to her cheerleading at high school at the time. And a very positive and bubbly personality. I remember she was freaking out because her dash light had come on and she just started driving your grandparents' car and she thought she broke it, when she just needed to change the dash sensor for her air conditioner. We both had a laugh, and I changed it for free. I ended up getting her number after that. Eventually, we began dating. We were both 18, but she was still in high school with her folks, while I had my own place and car. I was already in legend status in her eyes. We were just two kids crazy about each other as I look at it now. I would go to her games to watch and support her while everyone else came to see their team get beaten on a regular basis. She would come by and spend her lunchtime with me at the job and watch me work in cars as she was there. Our feelings for each other grew, as our sexual liaisons did. I'll spare you the details. A chuckle leaves Kevin's mouth as he sees the reaction of Kate. It was at her graduations that things would change forever. Your parents never liked me, and I had no issue telling them I don't care. After 9 months of dating, I decided to ask for her hand in marriage on her graduation day. She would say yes as she jumped into my arms. It was then that she told me that she was pregnant with you. I won't lie to you, I was terrified. I was only 18 for God's sake, working at a rundown shop, while attending school for engineering due to my parents' inheritances. But then I saw the look in her eyes, and that loving smile, and the thought of you growing inside her. The fear was soon met with love, determination, and a drive to take care of my family. Your grandparent hated the idea of her marrying me, but when she threatened to cut them out of her and your life, they changed a tune. In time they realized they had been unfair to me. Your grandpa hated the fact that although I respected him to a point, I was not intimidated by him. He was an all-star wrestler back in his high school days and loved to keep that bullying energy around when he could. I tended to shatter his ego when he tried that with me. Your grandmother hated the fact that I was not in the same social standing as her daughter, or at least I didn't appear to be. She would throw comments and insults, but I would respond with rebuttals that made her feel like an idiot. Her being a business executive in her branch, she was not used to a man other than her husband to stand up against her. But as time went on, I think we all just got tired of the unnecessary hate, at least from them. I didn't hate them, just didn't like them. Kevin then paused and took a drink from his Coke before he continued. The day you were born was one of the happiest in my life. I still remember seeing you when you came up, you screaming up a storm to anyone that held you. But then you came into my arms. You just looked up and smiled. A tear came down his face as he recounted the memory, and he looked at Kate's face and saw her eyes flood with tears. He then continued. Our life for the first 5 years were good years. At that point, we had a good house in a good neighborhood due to our jobs. I became one of the best contractors for computer engineering and auto repairs. If it had an engine, I could fix it. Christina was a cheerleading coach for the same high school she once cheerleader at. They won 3 national championships under her belt as a result. And you were just your special, cute, and adorable self. You loved us and I loved both of you. I loved the family that I had built and would do anything for them because they loved me too. Your grandparents and I even became friends. As crazy as it sounds, those years were among the best in my life. Kevin looked at Kate. Her face has a mixture of pleasing memories and confusion. Dad? Do you remember the time that you made me laugh so hard that the chocolate milk spilled out my nose and it went everywhere? Kevin chuckled and smiled. Yeah, your mom was pissed at that. Though those stains would stay on that new couch we bought. Fortunately, it did with enough club soda and special cleaning solution. They both laugh at the memory. But then Kate gives him a sad look. If those were among your best memories of us, then why did you leave? Kevin took a deep breath. Then he spoke. I noticed things began to change when you turned 8. We had just left for Chuck E. Cheese, and your mom decided to get things ready for you at the place. When I offered to help, she said no, and didn't want me to mess anything up. I thought that it was strange that she would say that to me, and she must have seen it, because she apologized as soon as she realized what she said. She then gave me one of the hardest kisses I ever had, and gave me a look that a adult star would give a lucky fan. I'm sorry for that, baby. Things at the job have been hectic, but I promise to make up for it later tonight. Her hand then explored my body. At that point, I was thinking with my head between my legs, and not the one on my shoulders. I was putty in her hands, literally. Without another word, she kissed me again and drove off. Fortunately, you were with friends next door. We ended up going to Chuck E. Cheese's for your birthday. It was awesome, of course. Except when that fat kid had to throw up in the ball pit and ruin it. Both laughed at the memory. But when we got home and tucked you in for the night, your mother was insatiable in bed. She did things I never knew possible. The next morning, I woke up later than normal, and she was gone. She left a note saying, I told you I would make up for its lover. I made Kate breakfast already, but had to go to a teacher's meeting. I'll be home later. I love you. My mind was dazing after that, but other than the perverse thoughts of my wife, I didn't think too much of it. As time went on, our time as a family continued as normal. I worked at my job as a contractor that rarely traveled to work for clients that paid very well as I fixed their planes, trains, and cars. And Christina continued her job as the cheerleader coach, and you kept your grade up and made honor roll. Then one day I saw Janice, a faculty member at your mom's school where she worked. We were at the supermarket and started a conversation. Eventually I mentioned the meeting they had last week. That was when she gave me a strange look. Kevin, we never had a meeting last week. In fact, we don't have one until next month. We had it at the beginning of last month. She must have saw the confusion in my face. Kevin, are you all right? You look ill. Yeah, Janice, I'm fine. It was just something I ate. Well, I hope you feel better. You take care of yourself. As she walked away, the gears in my head started working, coming to ideas and thoughts that I did not want to have in my head. The sex was great. Our life was good. There was no reason for lies to be told. But I could not help but wonder why my wife would make a lie like that. I wanted to confront her first, to believe it was some big mistake. But apart from me, I knew I had to find out the truth. One day, I decided to take a personal day off. I told my manager about it in advance and told him I had personal reasons for doing this. I never called out and gave excellent results, so there was no reason for him to say no at the request. Christina knew my schedule, so it was not an issue. To make it seem like I was going to work on one of her days off, I drove down the street like I always do. But I parked my car in Phil's garage down the street and borrowed his car. I told him I'll fix his AC for free if he let me use it. I drove back in his 2001 Chevy Impala and parked at the end of the block looking at my house. When I saw Christina leave, I followed her from a distance. You were already at school, so that was not an issue. I followed her about 15 minutes out of town until I saw it, and my heart began to sink. She was pulling into a hotel. I watched her park the car and make her way inside. When she came back, she was holding the hand of the superintendent, Jeffrey O'Neill. Jeffrey was one of Christina's high school jock friends. He was in the high school baseball team. Stood at 6'1", pure muscle, no one messed with him. He ended some guy's pro future before it could start when he intentionally slid into the kid's kneecap, injuring it. He was a bully in school, and after, with enough elbow rubbed and favors called in, he somehow graduated and got his master's and worked his way in the school system and stole his way up the ladder. He made the mistake of trying to intimidate me at a get-together. When he tried to step in with Christina for a dance, I told him to back off. He responded by trying to mash my face away due to him being taller and stronger. I responded by taking that same hand and twisting his fingers and wrist and making him cry to the ground. Pain affects people no matter how big and strong you are. He pissed his pants as he apologized to both me and Christina. Christina was shocked by it and slightly angry. At the time I felt bad because I embarrassed her. Now, I see Jeff has got off easy. I took my phone and recorded them as they both came to his car. I could see the joy on Christina's face as she saw it. I worked as a bouncer in a strip club of 2 to make extra cash when needed be. I know a bag of sex toys when I see one. I recorded them until they got to the hotel. After a few hours, I followed Jeff home. I knew where she was going, but I needed to know as much about him as possible for the payback I had in store for him. When I got home at my normal time, what once brought joy and love to my heart infuriated me when it came to your mother. She was cooking my favorite, baked marinated chicken with butter and marinade. The way she would sing a song and move. How she greeted me with a loving kiss and smile. I wanted to strangle her right there for having the audacity of kissing me, knowing where her lips were. But I wanted her to pay for what she did. And I knew to make that happen, I had to play part of the dumb cuck husband. Hey babe, how was your day? I'm fine, my love. Had a big day today. It was rough, but I think the results will work out in the long run. That's good, baby. Dinner will be ready in a minute. Kevin sits in place now. He then goes in the binder and pulls out an older cell phone. He then looks at Kate as he hands it to her. It is already set up, just press play. Kate watched in horror as she saw the scene play out. She sees the man hold her mom to him as his hand is griping her butt. Then how she kisses the man and jumps for joy damn near as the black bag is pulled out. She then watches as they enter the hotel together. When the video was over, she suddenly got up and ran out of the garage to throw up. Kevin just shook his head. Not out of shame, but of sympathy. He could tell that she thought she was with a good parent, the one that did nothing wrong. But it was all a lie. When she came back, Kevin had a glass of water waiting for her. When she gathered herself, she then spoke to him. I didn't know that she cheated. I always thought that you found someone and left us, but she just let me say it but never corrected me. She never owned up to it. I hated you all this time because even though you left, I thought it was because you cheated on her. Oh my God. Dad, I'm sorry. Kevin gave her a grave and sympathetic look. Water under the bridge. He then takes a breath and continues. I put in for some serious needed PTO. The boss was more than gracious. I kept him and HR up to date what I found. They were helpful and sympathy-filled. They put me on paid leave due to my work and contributions in the industry as well as the company. I was grateful for that, because now I could focus on what needed to be done. I never told my wife that I took time off. As far as she was concerned, I just went to work all the time. Our finances were just fine. So why would she care? I found a family court lawyer and investigation service all in one. Stockman's Law and Investigation Services. They were owned by twins Baxter and Barney Stockman. Baxter was the family lawyer. He was known as a monster who ate so-called sharks for breakfast, making any scum lawyer nervous to come in the same courtroom as him. He chose family law despite being one of the best prosecutors in the region. But his best friend was humiliated by his wife when she had an affair with a known narcotic dealer. Despite the clear-cut case of cheating, he lost custody to his kids, who turned out not to be his but the dealer's. When he was ordered to pay alimony and child support, both his ex and dealer laughed at him, and the judge banged his gavel. Weeks later, the dealer and his ex would be found shot in their bed, along with his friend, with a self-inflicted gun shot at his head. A note saying one single word. Why? The children ended up in foster care. Barney was a former police officer who served in Philadelphia for over 20 years. He was one of the best and most honest cops in the force. His investigations brought down mobsters, street gangs, serial killer and assaulters, and even assisted the FBI on more than one occasion. He loved his city and the people he swore to protect and serve. One day, Barney got word that his then-girlfriend, now wife, Nia, a beautiful woman from Germantown. Like Barney, she was loved by and wanted to protect and serve the community. However, she was shot in the line of duty. Someone spread a rumor that she was helping internal affair crackdown on a police unit involved with working in human trafficking. Both Barney and Nia hated crooked cops, so getting brought down was not only an issue, but welcomed. When Nia was on patrol, however, she was called to a domestic violence response. She was met by an officer who was friends with one of the ones locked up. When they arrived and knocked on the door, she was suddenly shot 4 times, one of the bullets hitting her head. Rather than aid her, the patrolman just let her there. The only reason she lived was because an elderly woman saw the whole thing and called an ambulance. When Barney found out, he demanded answers, but no one was talking. He then used his contacts in the FBI and found those responsible. When they went to trial, the suspects, all the cops, were let go due to lack of evidence and a witness suddenly dying under mysterious circumstances. Disillusioned with the department, Barney and Nia decided to leave. One night, however, Barney was asleep when he heard a crash window. Without thinking, he got his semi-automatic shotgun and told Nia to wait and call for help with the state police, not Philly. Barney killed the first man at the top of the stairs, and the shootout ensued. When it was over, 4 men were dead. All were the cops who were acquitted. To avoid embarrassment, the city gave both officers their pensions, as well as a settlement for them to disappear. In time, the two brothers decided to combine their skills with helping people and maybe pay a bill or two, and started up their own investigations in Central PA. When I arrived, I was greeted by one of the brothers, Baxter. "Hello, Mr. Smith. Thank you for coming down. However, at the same time, I wish it was under better circumstances." I gave a sad smile. "All that matters is how this ends." I gave him the video I made and told him I want a divorce with no reconciliation. But I also told him that even though this is an at-fault state, I don't want any chances of this being dragged out. So, I wanted Christina to be followed for the next month. I had more than enough in saving, and I even had separate accounts that she didn't know about, all legal and safely secure. I was damn near a millionaire, and I wasn't even 30. I gave him the address and name of her affair partner, and gave them permission to put hidden cameras in my house and both cars since my name was on all of them. And with a down payment, signatures, and a handshake, everything was ready. Barney told me that to keep suspicions to a low, that I would have to at some point be intimate with my wife. The thought strangely did not disturb me when she initiated a few nights later. It had already been 3 weeks since I had any pleasure. That night, I was not my usual nurturing and loving self. I was rough, selfish, and dominant. I used every orifice and used her as if she was a toy for my pleasure. No sense or ounce of respect. Yet she loved every minute of it. My God, you wore me out, babe. She went to sleep after giving me praise. I swore to myself I would never touch her again. As the weeks went on, I came up with the excuse for a business trip and had to leave for a few weeks. Christina put on her act of being sad. I saw through it, of course. I was staying at a cabin I bought for myself with my folks' inheritance money, in case I ever wanted to be away. Not even Christina knew about it. As I stayed there, I would go over the divorce procedures with Baxter, while Barney got more information about Jeff and Christina. In time, more tapes followed, but the graphic ones were in my own home, in my own bed. When the second week was ending, Baxter called me into the office. He offered me a drink, and I accepted. "We got it all, man. All the evidence you need to win this case. But I got to tell you, this is rough. You sure you want to see this?" I didn't hesitate when I told him yes, and I sat down and watched what would be the destruction of both my marriage and the love I once had for my wife. As the video feed played, I saw a depravity I did not think possible from the woman I called my wife. In almost 10 years together, I saw her do things that she never did for me, except for that night I had no respect for her. I saw her in bondage. I saw exaggerated toys used on her. I saw her role play or being walked around the room then screwed as if she was nothing but meat and a hole. It was degrading. And the worst part was not that it was in my own bed, but the disrespect both her and Jeff would give me. He would mock her and insult me as he screwed on her in our own bed. That chicken of a husband can't please you. Can he, you dirty bitch? Not like I can, right? Oh, no, baby. My husband is worthless like always. He is nowhere near the man you are. Oh my God, yes. I could not watch anymore. I turned it off right then. As Kevin spoke, he pulled out a disc and handed it to the shaking hands of Kate. "Is this?" "Yeah, the footage of your mother cheating on me with Jeffrey." Kate let her tears fall, but she did not sob this time. Only let them fall. Kevin then spoke up, now the rest of the reason. "I eventually had to leave the meeting room. When I got out, Baxter and Barney were waiting for me. I want the papers ready, but don't deliver them just yet. I want Jeffrey and that bitch of a wife to pay for this, but this is going to take care and strategy. No loopholes for either of them to slip through." Both agreed, and we began what was to be the official bullet to the brain that was once my marriage. I told Barney to keep gathering evidence, not just for me, but Jeffrey's loving wife. I also told them to call her and arrange a meeting for the day I served my wife. I then let the week play out. I didn't do anything really. I just looked at my hotel room and just stared at the wall, thinking how this all happened. Our life was like something you would see in a romance comedy, or one of those 80s movies where the geek or weird kid got the popular cheerleader who was such a good person. And that is when it hit me, when my tears finally let go. I cried before, even after I found out everything. But now knowing that the love and respect that I shared with her, that beautiful kind of girl who I fell in love with within high school, really didn't love and respect me, even though it is all I have for her. We shared our love and adventures, our good time and ability to be there for each other for our bad. She was there for me when my grandpa died, a World War II captain of the 101st Airborne, my hero from all the tales of his time fighting the Nazis and freeing my grandmother from the concentration camps. From the moment I could understand him, we were inseparable. Then one day he went to sleep on the couch next to me as we were watching our favorite Doctor Who rerun marathon, just for him not to wake up the next morning. He knew his time was coming, of course, He was 82 after all. Christina knew how close I was to Grandpa Bill. I broke down beside her. My only friend was gone. But she was there for me. She helped me heal. I was there for her when her best friend died in that car accident. She was in. Kate was taken aback. Mom was in a car accident? Without missing a beat, Kevin nodded. Yeah, it was brutal too. Her and her friend Rebecca Chambers never saw it coming. Drunk driver came though the light at crazy speed. Hit them so hard the car flipped. Rebecca was thrown from the car, but only halfway. Her upper body was completely crushed beyond recognition. Your mom survived, but with serious injuries. The drunk who caused the accident was a repeat offender. Some college girl who could not say no to drink. She got out of her car and tried to run away but was caught by a witness. I was there for her when she had to recuperate, and I was there for her when she gave her impact speech to the girl who killed her best friend since kindergarten. They requested 3 pictures for the court to see. One was when they were kids in kindergarten. They were both wearing Lilo and Stick outfits for Halloween. Another was their most recent picture. They were at a Blink-182 concert, not even a week before the accident. And the other was that of the autopsy photo. When the drunk tried to turn away, she yelled at her to see what she did, but she couldn't. Rebecca's entire torso was cut from the waist up. Her head was a paste mixed with brain matter. And then she screamed. Her mother and father had to identify that you monster. And I was there her as she was for me. She was there for me when I did not feel like living because my friend was gone, reminding me that as strong as he was, Captain America personified, the last thing he would want is for his foxhole buddy to be moping and wallowing in self-pity. Snapping out of my depressed stupor, I would be there for her when it just hurt too much for her to move, let alone do what she loved, cheerleading. She would be angry and bitter with the bone fractures and injuries she endured from the accident, and she would take it out on friends and family. I would be that much needed foot-upper, but when she tried that on me, telling her that it was weak and pathetic to take out her frustrations on those who cared about her, what she was doing was cowardly. I told her, I don't befriend cowards, and that is not you. You're better than that. I was there as she healed her broken body, reminding her who brought those championships home, and cheered in pride as she brought her last championship cheerleading competition home for the last time that year, and dedicated it to me and her friend Rebecca. She was not just the first girl I had sex with, she was my friend. Then there came a thought I didn't consider, or more like want to. Kevin stopped for a moment, and Kate noticed he was tapping the binder again, as if preparing to show something she did not want to see. I came home early to surprise you both. Your mom was genuinely surprised I was there. I was surprised she was not riding Jeffrey, but I didn't say anything. I kept up with the facade of a loving husband. Told her the company needed me back for an emergency before they sent me back out of state. She bought it, of course. Your mother was in rare form and wanted me. I swallowed my pride and gave her just that. I would take another test soon and make both her and Jeff pay for it as another fee from the divorce. When I was done, and your mother was asleep, I came to your room. I looked at you, a way a father should love his daughter. But I also knew that things would never be the same. I then left that night, calling Baxter. Have the pic sent to Jeff's wife tomorrow. We need to talk. The next day, I was given a message by an unknown number. The text said, meet me at the Silver Spoon Diner at 3. When I arrived, I saw a woman with dark hair and green eyes. She was beautiful. She looked like a model, but dressed like a homemaker with her jeans and button shirt. She was clearly European decent, but could not tell what region. Then she waved me down, and I took a seat at her table. I could see by the look of her eyes she had been crying. Then she spoke. I saw the evidence. My husband and that bitch of a wife of yours. She practically spit out the words as she said them. Oh, I'm sorry. I placed a hand on hers. I didn't have a look of anger or embarrassment. Not even sadness, to be honest with you. I think it was more along the lines of acceptance. It's fine. You have every right to be angry. I just thought that you deserved to know. I then gave her more evidence of the affair, copies of what I have. Meetings at hotels with charging receipts, more video and pictures, even gift receipts from clothing and jewel stores. Yes, she even bought selfish scumsucker jewelry and clothes with my own money. I then looked at her when I got up to leave and helped her up. For what it is worth, I'm sorry that this happened to you. Mrs. O'Neill. April. My name is April, and I would like the number to your lawyer if that were all right. I admired her character. How, after her heart ripped out of her chest, she still had the kindness and decency to ask. I gave her the card and then left. I then went to the Stockman office and retrieved the papers. You guys may be getting a new client today. I want Jeffrey served at his job. I'll take Christina's papers. Baxter nodded and then gave me a handshake, shifting into a hug. Then he spoke, whatever happens, we will be there with you. and make sure you come out this mess on top." I thanked him and headed home. By that time of day, I knew your mother would not be home. When I came into the house, I took a real long look at it as I stood in the living room. I imagined every memory I had in that house played out in front of me. From when me and her first became its owners, our first meal was KFC because we were so tired from unpacking. I imagined the image of us making love on our first couch. I still see the lust and genuine love she had in her eyes. I see you trying to climb on the couch to see your first movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the live-action movie. I wanted you to see the movies I grew up in. I remember our first fight over the hours I worked, but it was costing us time together, and how we made up for it through tears, laughter, and eventually another session on the couch. I see the image of you and your mother singing karaoke, or trying to while I recorded it, and the image of you sleeping on my lap as your mother was asleep on my shoulder. Tears feel as if I looked at not just the room, but the memories I built with her. I left a note on the table with the ring and package containing the divorce papers and the disc with her exploits on top of it. It simply read, "Hope it was worth it," and got all my belongings. I then walked through the door of what was once my home and my life for the last time. A few hours later, my phone was blowing up with calls and text, along with frantic voicemails. "Baby, pick up the phone. We need to talk. It is not what you think. I love you. Don't throw away what we have." I was almost tempted to respond to that one, to scream at her that I did not throw anything away, that I was made an unknowing cuck who was mocked by the woman who claimed to love me. But I stayed silent. She did not deserve my time nor sympathy. I did not hate her. I hated what she did to me. And I hated the face that through all the messages and pleas, not once did she apologize. I would not see her until court. The company I worked for allowed me to work from my new home, which at this point was already out of state. But I never shared that information with anyone who did not need it. I kept the phone that had my number on it to record your mother's voicemails and text. I figured it could be used in court somehow. I left it in a safe deposit box in the town bank in case she tried tracking me with it somehow, while at the same time bought an upgraded one completely with a new number. I eventually heard that April kicked out Jeffrey when he got home with friends for game night. I could only imagine the spectacle of thinking your wife has your favorite meal for a party, only to find the same wife giving you a stare that should kill you, then play a video playing your sexual escapades that included someone that wasn't her, all in front of your friends and peers, all right before slapping you in front of your friends and walking out with her luggage in hand. I believe she ended up staying with her sister after that. She wanted nothing to do with that house or him, and since they did not have kids, it was even easier. And to top it all off, Jeff had his shoulder tapped while he was rubbing his cheek. "Jeffrey O'Neill? Yeah, that's me. You have been served, sir. We all lived our lives. I stayed away from you and your mother in my place out of state, while Baxter kept me posted. Your mother and Jeffrey ended up staying together for a bit. Guess even cheating pieces of shit need a place to stay when their wife kicks them out. Eventually, the day of the divorce arrived. Christina was on her bench with her lawyer. She looked like a shadow of herself. Gone was the confident and radiant beauty she once was. In her place stood a woman who had lost weight, with bags under her eyes, making her look like a living skeleton, using fashion and makeup to hide how broken she truly was. She tried to hug me, but Baxter stepped in between us. He spoke to her lawyer, a young guy who looks like he relied more on look and charm instead of knowledge. "Control your client, please. She clearly should understand there is a reason she is on the opposite side of mine." The guy just smiled. "Sir, surely this matter can be resolved. They are a beautiful couple where one just made a mistake. I can. Just keep her there. Save your argument for the court, not me. That is why you are here after all." The man sneered and looked like he wanted to say something, but then stopped himself. It was then that the judge came through the door. After the judge sat down, Christina's lawyer made his case. "Your Honor, witnesses of this court, we are here today to prevent another mistake that would destroy this marriage and this family. My client admits the mistakes. She doesn't want any money or funds. She just wants the chance to make things right despite the mistake that she made. She came home to an empty house, missing her husband. No words, no warning, just a letter and ring. No chance to hear her side, just gone. Then there is the child, who just wants to know where her daddy is. Which is why, despite the mistakes my client admits to, we are requesting counseling. If the opposing party disagrees, we are prepared to sue for emotional distress." I nearly broke the arm on the chair I sat in, as I was forced to listen to that garbage. But I felt Baxter's hand on my arm, giving it a squeeze and smile, reminded me that he had my back and will see this through to the end. Then he rose to speak. "Your Honor, my client wants nothing more than to move on with his life. He is giving up the house already for the wife, who did not make a mistake, but made the conscious decision to cheat on her husband. With evidence, we will prove that she did in fact cheat, and staying in this situation will be an emotional breakdown for my client. And with that, the session began. Her lawyer made her seem like the neglected wife, whose husband had no time or effort for her and their daughter. Then to suddenly just disappear was cruel. Christina was then questioned by Baxter. "Mrs. Smith, did you cheat on your husband?" "Yes, I made that awful mistake, and I will regret it for the rest of my life." "A mistake? Were you forced to have sex with your affair partner, Mrs. Smith?" Christina was taken aback by the comment. What are? It is a reasonable question, ma'am. You mentioned it was a mistake. Did Mr. O'Neill fall on you by accident and his tool entered you?" Her lawyer stood up and screamed his objection, and the judge gave a stern warning not to speak like that in his courtroom. But Baxter merely commented, "Your Honor, the purpose of the question is to point out that Mrs. Smith could make the conscious decision to have an affair with Mr. O'Neill. If it please the court, I wish to allow my questioning." The judge allowed it despite the questioning. "Mrs. Smith, was there a microchip that can affect your decision-making capabilities placed inside your brain?" Christina was almost insulted by the question, as it was her lawyer who objected, but the judge allowed it based on Baxter's previous address from earlier. "No, of course not." Christina was angry and flustered by the question, but Baxter was calm and direct as he continued his questions. "Did you in fact make the conscious decision to have sex with another man that was not your husband?" At first, she could not answer but was told by the judge to do so. "Why, yes." "Were you forced to have sex with Mr. O'Neill in any way?" Again, she paused but answered, "No, I was not forced." "So, is it fair to say that in no way, shape, or form was this a mistake but a choice? And mind you, Mrs. Smith, you are under oath." Tears began to fall as Christina sat in that chair. It was as if answering that would shatter any chance of fixing the marriage that she loved but took for granted. "Mrs. Smith, you will answer the question." The judge's order, along with her lawyer's nodding head, made her talk. In a weak voice, she answered, "Yes." Baxter spoke up. "Mrs. Smith, if you would please speak up." "I said yes, damn it." "Mrs. Smith, I will not allow a speaker of this court to be spoken to in such a way." Baxter coolly raised his hand. "It is all right, Your Honor. This is an emotional situation, and I take no offense. Now, Mrs. Smith, you claim this was one time, correct?" Christina looked at me before answering. "It was more than once. A few times." Baxter had an expressionless look in his eyes. He then came to reach his briefcase and brought out a disc and a brown envelope. "Your Honor, I have for the court more proof of Mrs. Smith's infidelity. If the court would not mind to play this disc and see the evidence provided." When Christina took the folder, her hands were shaking with both fear and dread. Before she could see a single photo of the damning evidence, she heard the own moans and panting as if Jeffrey was screwing her in the back of his car. She looked in shame and horror as she recognized the area of the deed. It was in a wooded yet open and secluded area that overlooked the city. It was a known love spot for couples since their 50s. Many a life was created in this location. Unfortunately, many a marriage ended here as well. But the real horror besides her behavior was the lack of respect for her husband. It was not just her insulting him with Jeffrey, nor her vulgarity and behavior allowing him to use her like a 304 from the street. It was a fact that she did all of this with her wedding ring on. The same wedding ring that I proposed to her where we had our first date. The awkward yet loving innocence of that day was forever tarnished from her actions. With tears she noticed this and looked at me from her side. I'm not sure if she saw the single tear that came from my eye or not. I turned before she could see me. Then more images appeared. Images from motels where the window was blatantly left open. Images of them having dinner and flirting with each other non-stop, including when she Jeffrey her underwear from under the dining table of the restaurant to him on the spot. Times when she gave him a BJ in a parking lot. Times when she even brought him to our bed when no one was home. Every graphic and shameful detail was in those photos and images on the screen. Even the judge seems affected by the images. Christina held her head down as she broke down in tears and shame. After seeing this, the judge decided that court was done for the day, and that things will continue the following month. As I got up to leave, I saw Christina with her head in her arms. Her lawyer tried to console her, but it was as if she were a facet that could not move. I continued through the door. It was not my job or duty to care for her anymore. Despite my heart feeling like it was decimated, I was met with a surprise at the courtroom door. "April, what are you doing here?" She gave me a warm and supporting smile. "You told me a hard truth that I must deal with. I figure it was only fair that I support you with facing your—" I didn't notice the smile that came to my face. "Thank you. Also, my divorce happens to be right after yours." So hey, I got a 2-for-1. A weak laugh escaped her lips followed by hollow laughter. Then I spoke up. If it is all right with you, I can show my support as well. She smiled at me. I think I would really like that. And so, I stayed for her divorce as she stayed for mine. Jeffrey gave me a sharp look as if her wanted to kill me. I merely gave him a stony one in return, mentally begging him to try, as if desiring an outlet to unleash all the pain, anger, and rage on that thing he calls a face, and a willingness to break every bone in his body. Oh, please do, Jeffrey. Please do. Not sure if Jeffrey heard me, but he must have saw something in my eye, because just as soon as he gave that bullshit look and saw my eyes, he was down the floor as if he were a pup that had just beaten. The court case was like mine as I sat in the back. Both lawyers made their arguments. Jeffrey doubled down with the lies, still believing he could hide this, until the videos played. The judge was too embarrassed to view them without further embarrassment. The video was good in quality after all. April, on the other hand, could not hold back her emotions as she cried in the courtroom. She did not make a sound, but every kiss, touch, thrust that she saw him make was like a dagger being plunged into her heart again and again. When the court was done for the day, she practically ran to me in tears. Get me out of here, please. That was all that needed to be said. I took us out of the courtroom and in my car in mere moments. We decided to go to dinner to get something to eat and lick our wounds, or figure out why we weren't good enough. We didn't realize it at the time, but it was we had developed this bond of pain and heartbreak in each other. I just thought it was good company in a bad time. When we were given our drinks, no words were said. We just investigated the liquid of our drinks. Then she spoke up. I don't understand. Did I do something wrong? Something I missed? I washed his clothes, cooked his favorite meals. I was there for him when the world vilified him, helped build him back up when he was broken when his older brother died, was with him when his knee injury stopped him from playing baseball, the sport he loved so much when his so-called friends left him when their meal ticket was gone. I made love to him and rocked his world in ways that would make a sex worker blush. I loved him with every fiber of my being. But I wasn't good. I held her in my arms as she broke down. Thankfully, it was a lighthouse this afternoon in the diner. The cook gave a look of concern, but we both assured him that we were all right. He gave us a few drinks on the house as we waited for our food. As the last of her tears fell, I spoke to her. Listen to me. Unless you had your own peace on the side and ignored him, you did nothing wrong. It is not your job to be a mind reader. You supported him through times most would leave him behind. You stayed when others left when the free ride was over. You were loyal, supportive, and loving. April, you are beautiful, with the heart and soul to match. Any man who would do what he did to you is a fool and needs his head examined. April, you did not deserve this. Neither of us did. Through her tears, a smile came to her face. She then kissed me on the cheek. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. We both ate without issue after that. But that would not be our only time we would meet. Our next court appearance will be next month. In that time, we helped each other. She was only 24 with no kids. I had her by a few years. We would talk to each other on the phone weekly just to make sure the other was all right and to get to know each other. A revenge affair was the last thing on our mind, but we could not deny that through this pain we both shared, we began to care for one another. Christina's friends and family began harassing me, calling me a deadbeat and a piece of shit for leaving her while she was going through a confusing time. I would later find out that those same friends had covered up her affair. I would make them pay in time. Eventually, the next court session came. It was no longer the usual she made a mistake argument, but now they were aiming for marriage counseling. I didn't bother to make a sound. I was done with it anyway. This marriage was ending. Even the judge was a little surprised by the gall of the argument. But me and Baxter had our death nail to kill this marriage. Your Honor, my client admits to the poor decisions she has made. She is not looking for excuses. She just wants her family back. Their child has been without a father for a month, Your Honor. She cries to sleep every night wondering when he is coming home. Yes, Your Honor and people of this court, she willingly had sex with a man that was not her husband. But that does not mean that their child, that they created, should have to suffer for the actions of her parents. I didn't say anything as a tear fell down my eye. Not a word. I just let him work his word magic even though every word cut me. Kevin then looked up from the chair, then took an envelope in his hand as he looked at a confused but focused Kate. He then spoke again. Before I continue this story any further, know that I always loved you, with all my heart. But this had to be done. He then replayed the memories of that day to Kate. Baxter then spoke. Your Honor, members of the court, I wish to call Mrs. Smith into question. This was unusual. Normally, You would be called to speak once, but not this time. I knew what Baxter was doing, but I let him continue. He then addressed her. Mrs. Smith, let me just say that I thank you for holding yourself accountable for your actions. Christina held her head high, not in arrogance but determination. Of course, there is no excusing the actions that I have done. I have hurt the man I loved, and I will never forgive myself for that. If airing my laundry out and holding myself accountable for the actions I have done, then I will do just that. I love that man, sir, and I will do right by him. I did not say a word when she spoke, nor show any emotion. Baxter then spoke again. Again, thank you for your honesty. I do have a question. Who is Kate's father? The silence of that court was deafening enough that you could hear a mouse heartbeat. Christina was in complete shock to be asked such a question. Even the judge was taken aback before her lawyer could finally get an objection out. Your Honor, he is slandering my client in an attempt to insult her character. Counsel, do you have any idea what you are doing right now? Yes, Your Honor, I'm protecting my client. There is a purpose for this question if the court allows this. I will have the evidence and reasons to ask it when I'm finished. The judge gave him a stern look but then spoke. You have one chance, counselor. I will not tolerate a mockery of this court. Understood, Judge. Thank you. Now, Mrs. Smith, I will ask again. Who is Kate's father? Christina looked at the man with pure venom. If she could rip his throat out, she would. Then she spoke. It is my husband's child, Kevin Smith. The sureness and confidence of her answer evident in her voice. Baxter did not say anything. Instead, he pulled out a brown envelope and addressed the court. As Kevin told the story, he gave Kate a brown envelope before he continued. Your Honor, I have here proof by DNA that my client is not the father of his child. That metaphorical pin drop might as well be a napalm bomb going off. No one could hide the shock on their face. No one could say a single word as the weight of what was said began to settle in. Your Honor, Mrs. Smith is trying to save a marriage that never existed. There was never a family, Your Honor. It was all a lie that she was willing to hide from my client. And the reason I say that, Your Honor, is because we used DNA from Mr. and Mrs. Smith as well as Mr. O'Neill. And based off these facts, Your Honor, not only is my client not the biological father, but neither is Mr. O'Neill. Again, the shock was defining, but it could no longer be hidden. The judge then spoke. We will have recess for this hour and come back in that time. With the hit of his gavel, the courtroom ended. April was waiting for me outside. Her divorce was finalized when the judge decided the marriage could not be saved after more evidence of Jeffrey's cheating came to light. It turned out he had a thing for married women and was discovered by an angry husband while having an affair with his wife in their marital bed. The husband responded by beating up his terrified wife and beating Jeffrey half to death when he saw him with his own wife in his bed. Jeffrey would die of his injuries in the hospital later. April was given the funds of his will in the amount of $150,000. The funeral expenses were covered with his death insurance and spousal benefits of his company, as well as his 401k plan and perks. In total, she would walk away with $300,000. Despite payday, happy was the last thing she was. The house was paid off, as were both vehicles. She would sell both, adding another $170,000, and get a one-bedroom apartment with the year paid out as she figures what she needs to do with her life now. The husband was arrested for murder, but cleared on charges due to temporary insanity from a crime of passion. The wife ended up losing hearing in her right ear and lost sight of her left eye. The husband divorced her and left town. After me and April had our lunch, we talked about everything that had happened. April, for what it's worth. I'm sorry that you are going through this. April nodded in acceptance and respect. Thank you, Kevin. It's strange. I just found out that my husband is a lying, cheating man. A scumbsucker who screwed around with anyone he could, even those he was committed to, and yet, I'm still sad that he is gone. I must be a real idiot. I can even hate the man after he ripped my heart out. And dare I say I still love him. My God, what is wrong with me? I took her hand and spoke. Nothing is wrong with you. You are a good person and a loving wife who is grieving the loss of her husband, and that is okay. Before he was a scumsucker, he was your best friend whom you fell in love with. That doesn't make you an idiot, April. It makes you human, which, despite popular opinion, can be a good thing. She then looked at me as her hand was holding mine. Thank you, Kevin, for all of it and more. Thank you. There was a look in her eyes, a look as though she wanted something, or someone. I didn't notice that our faces were getting closer. Then suddenly my phone rang. It was Baxter. The judge is ready in 20 minutes. Be here by then. Okay? I looked at April and gave a light smile. Perhaps we can continue this conversation another time. Maybe next Friday at 8? April smiled. I like that idea. And with that, I headed back to the court. Everyone arrived on time. while Christina was a shell of herself. Someone must have told her about Jeffrey. It finally dawned on her why she didn't hear from him in 3 weeks. Then the judge spoke. I have worked in family court for over 2 decades. Despite what the media and TV portray, and other courts as well, I make it a point to see what is best for the parties involved. I understand you are suing the school district as well, due to the departed party working for them and using their time to continue the affair, Mr. Smith? I responded, yes, Your Honor. The judge then looked at Christina before speaking again. The sanctity of marriage is the union between 2 adults that agree to spend the rest of their lives together, through sickness and health, forsaking all others. That oath was broken. Regardless of what problems there are, it is imperative that such problems are spoken about. Did not happen here. And the real tragedy is that there is a child in this. A child who had no say as to how this would end. Mrs. Smith, you willingly committed an act that you knew could change the life of not just your husband, but your entire family. Your recklessness and selfish desires have fractured the lives of your family, and that is a burden you must bear. Mr. Smith, you may not be the father by blood, but you raised this child her whole life. However, due to the circumstances of this case, your mental well-being must be observed as well. Therefore, it is this court's decision that this marriage is terminated currently. Mr. Smith will not pay any child support or alimony. Being that the house is paid off, the profits will be divided. Both individuals will keep their pensions and 401k. The judge gave a grave look to both of us, as if he had witnessed someone die. Maybe, in a way, he did. I wish you both good luck. Court is adjourned. Baxter shook my hand and patted me on the shoulder in celebration. I looked at Christina. Her expression was that of a soldier with a million-mile stare into nothing. She then walked to me like a robot, only showing emotion when she faced me. She only said 2 words, I'm sorry. And with tears in her eyes, she walked out of the courtroom and then my life. The following weeks were a blur of meetings and paperwork. I signed the paperwork needed to sell the house. When I put the sign up, I gave it one last look as I cried. Despite what happened it gave me, and what I thought was my family shelter and memories, I got $168,500 out of half of the profits. I then got an in-house position for my company, only having to see different sites on occasion with the promotion they gave me. I took advantage of that and moved in a matter of weeks, leaving it all behind. Kevin looked at Kate and the paper crumpled in her hand. The tears were falling down her face as if water was being poured into a glass. You aren't my dad? Kevin gave her a sad shake of his head. No, Kate, I'm not your dad. Kate just sat there, letting the tears fall, her voice barely a whisper. I was told, through all my life, that you had abandoned us, that you hooked up with some bitch in town and just left. I used to blame myself so much that I made myself sick. I felt so alone and broken, but I had Mom because Mom never lies and was always there for me. Just to find that not only did the man who I thought was my father leaving me was bullshit, but that my mother spread her legs to some playboy piece of shit who had a fetish for wives, but that not even he is my dad. Just some guy I never knew who screwed my mom when she was in high schools with with her future husband she claimed to love. I don't even know who the sperm bank is. How is that for a punchline for the joke that is my life? Suddenly, Kate felt a folder placed in her lap. She opened it, revealing a picture of a man she had never seen before, along with a DNA chart. The man had a beard and was listed as being of Irish descent, standing at 5'9" with a lean build. His name is Michael O'Donnell. He went to school with your mom. I don't think he knew we were together, or maybe he did. I'm not sure. Either way, she cheated on me with him. I believe your mom knew there was a chance he could be your dad, but chose not to investigate further. He's currently an Army major, retired, of course. He lives in Colorado now. When I won my lawsuit against the school, I had a pretty penny, and I used it to find him. It cost, but I did. I never wanted anything from him. There was no point for me. But a part of me knew you would want to know why. And I would at least want you to have the answer. Tears fell from Kate's eyes. Suddenly she ran to Kevin, hugging him for all should. Kevin. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what my bitch of a mother did to you. Kevin just smiled. You got nothing to apologize for. It is all right. The wholesome moment that was interrupted was over when a SUV pulled up the driveway. Once it parks in front of them, 3 people stepped out of it. The driver was a middle-aged woman, possibly in her early 40s, but the beauty and leanness in her face and body would peg her for some model in her late 20s. The other was a young man, no older than 18. Despite his ages, his muscular and lean figure would peg him at 21 years of ages. He stood at 6'1" with sky-blue eyes and brown hair. And the last was a young woman, who had an eerie resemblance to the young man somehow. She was very beautiful. Her brown hair and blue eyes were evident. She stood at 5'7", the same as the woman who stepped out of the vehicle. She had the body of a supermodel, no doubt 18 as well. As Kate looked closer, she realized that the two adults were not just siblings, but twins. Before anything was said, Kevin got up and made his way to the woman, kissing her passionately, only stopping to say her name. "Hello, April, my love." He kissed her again before she could respond. The young woman then spoke. "Oh, come on now, guys. Can't you control yourself for 2 minutes around each other? There are kids present." The young man then spoke. "Tara, Mom and Dad been doing this before we were even thought about. And technically we have been adults for the past 24 hours, so the claim that kids are present is kind of off." Tara then poked at her brother. "Oh, stow it, Marcus. You always have some smart comment to say. So, you do think I'm smart?" The fun banter was interrupted when Kevin spoke up. "Okay, we had our loving family comedy skit. I do have a guest, so you need to behave yourselves for a bit. You two can start that by bringing the groceries and bags in for your mother. Baby, can I talk to you for a moment?" "Of course, honey. What is?" She stopped when she saw Kate standing at the edge of the garage couch, seeing a ghost from her past. Kevin then spoke. "This is Kate, from my first marriage." April looked in shock. "You look so much like her." Kate was apprehensive after that. "Honey, please no, I mean no offense. It's just you take after your mother so much. Come on, let's talk for a bit." And so, the three talked about Kate's life. Kate shared her trauma of not having a father. Being told that she was not wanted or even hated wasn't true. He just wasn't her father and had to leave. Kate then asked, "So, when did you guys get together?" Both paused before Kevin answered. "Believe it or not, dumb luck." Kate was confused but let him continue. "After the divorce I arrived here. By a year I had my current home job that was paying me well. But I also worked as a mobile mechanic on the side. Be surprised how profitable it is during winter and the holidays. Plus, it helped pass the time when you're stuck inside all day. Anyway, I got a call from the local news station saying one of their van's engines had overheated. So, I loaded up the equipment needed and went to the scene. The engine was by a farm on the back road. Take a guess who the driver was?" Kate looked at April and nodded with a faint smile. Then she spoke up. "Before I got married to Jeffrey, I took up media studies to learn how to work as a cameraman and eventually director. But I stopped when I met Jeffrey. With the divorce, there was no reason for me not to pursue that. I was barely 24 anyway and still had so much time. I ended up moving out here after a year of staying in my old town. I got a job as a cameraman and just wanted to get away. I knew I had money, but I hated the idea of standing still. To say I was surprised to see Kevin again could not put it into words. We had not seen each other for a year. We figured we saw each other when we needed each other. Turns out life had different ideas. Eventually, we exchanged number after talking for a bit and began dating soon after. It was hard at first, the idea of letting someone in after being betrayed. But we realized we always wanted each other. From when we met when our hearts were first broken, to that present moment, we knew. Our date became more frequent, and in time our relationship grew. We were married a year later, followed by the twins. You met them earlier. April then got up and held Kate in a hug, then spoke. "Kate, I will not lie to you. I'm worried about what your presence means now that you are up here. But as I know you, I reminded myself that what happened was not your fault nor the fault of your father. I will always defend my husband for what he did. No man should be forced to care for a child that is not his. Yes, it was not fair on what happened to you, but I want you to imagine how you would feel. The love of your life lying to you and hiding her betrayal. Then to find out that the child you thought was yours for years turns out to be someone else's. And that every time you see that loving child, you see that betrayal again and again. It is not your fault, baby, not by any means. But does he deserve to suffer the pain every time he sees you? Every time he holds you thinking you were all his, but instead the result of your mother giving away something that was reserved for the man that was supposed to be your father? Be honest with me, Kate. Could you ignore that if you were him?" Kate wanted to say yes so much, but deep down she knew the answer. No, I could not. She cried in April's arms as she spoke. "Kate, we are having dinner. If it is okay with Kevin and you, I would like for you to stay." After a moment of silence, both agreed. The dinner was something out of fantasy. A loving family joking and laughing while having their bellies full. A loving bond she had not seen since she was a child. She had a relationship with her mother, but the loving nature was not as present as it once was. It was as if the sight of her only reminded her mother of what she lost due to her decisions. She did not hold resentment, though, but with what she knows now, her and her mother will have a long talk. The twins shared how they graduated the day prior, how Tara was the artist of the family. Some of her poems and painting have even won contests nationally sponsored. Marcus shared how he and his team won the wrestling state championship, but how he had plans on working for NASA now that he graduated. He will always stay in shape, as he was known as the jock geek of his high school. But what she really underestimated was the warm welcome she received. Earlier that day, she tried to attack that man and failed miserably. Now, she is having a loving and welcoming dinner with these people. At the end of the night, April and Kevin walked her out of the door as the Uber driver arrived to pick her up. April then spoke, "Kate, I know your father was never in your life, especially after everything that happened. But know that what happened to you does not define you." Kate was about to get in the Uber when she turned around. "Hey, I'm sorry how this started. The whole trying to attack you, just to get my butt kicked and all. Maybe after things, we could talk again." Kevin and April smiled at that. "Yeah, think that could work down the line." And with that, the Uber drove off. Elsewhere, Christina drank her latest wine, thinking about the past that will never be. She never fully recovered the loss and destruction of her marriage. Not a day goes by that she does not think about the family she once had and how she squandered it. After the scandal, she was removed from her position at school. For a time, she got to work as a tutor, maintaining her degrees and skills in the teaching field. Her saving grace was a combination of COVID and homeschooling. Whether it was due to avoiding COVID or parents feeling that schools had become indoctrination centers rather than places of learning, the reasons varied. While it wasn't exactly a rags to riches story, she would live comfortably. However, that comfort came at a price. A lot of her time was spent trying to control her daughter, who acted out more than one occasion due to her father just leaving. Years of feeling unwanted or loved by the man who was once her father, now a stranger she did not meet or see in years. The fight she would get into, the shouting matches, and the wrong choice in store, including one who beat her and cheated on her on a regular basis. Nor did the narcotic use and stint in county jail help. Yet through it all, Christina saw the little girl who just wanted her daddy back, and she mentally hated herself for ruining that little girl's life. She is snapped out of her thoughts when she hears the doorbell. Gathering herself, she heads to the door, a very angry Kate staring back at her, with a document that Christina immediately recognized it, and her heart sank. Where did you get? Why? I lived my entire life thinking about that he left me because he wanted nothing to do with me, that he cheated on you and left with that 304 whoever the hell she was, that he hated me, only to find out that his so-called loving wife not only cheated on him after high school, but that I'm not even his kid. What the hell did you think was going to happen, Mom? That he was going to be a good cuck and raise the kid of the guy who made a toaster strudel of his wife? I did nothing but love you. Despite me being a screw-up, and I got no one to blame for that but me, I loved and trusted you. Because you were all I had in this shitty world that was honest with me. My mother, who would love and protect me. Now lo and behold, I find the guy, only to find out that everything you told me about him, you and Jeffrey, who is not even my bio dad, but a guy named Michael O'Donnell. Christina gasped at the name. Well, that's one time you told the truth. He told me that you and he had a fling, but he didn't know about you and Kevin. Christina saw the tear leave her daughter's eyes as she could not finish the words, and it broke her heart. Is it true? Christina was crying now, her voice broken in light sobs. I was young and stupid. It was just a phase, right? And you pegged Kevin as the sorry sap to take responsibility for your reckless decision, didn't you? Is that all I am? Just the result of your selfish choices? No, baby, of course not. I love you. Then why did you lie to me for over the past 15 years, Mom? Why would you do that? Because I was scared. I feared losing something that I never thought I would have, something I only dreamed about, a real family. I made that stupid decision that cost me my family, baby, but I don't regret having you for a second. I'm sorry your mother is weak and a coward, but I thought I could hide the lie a little longer. God, if I was breathing, but I couldn't. I broke of the heart of the only man who ever loved me, and it cost you a father when you needed him most. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Christina just cried in front of her daughter on the ground in a heap of her sorrow. Kate just looked at her. For the next few minutes, neither said a word to each other, as the tears just flowed. Then Kate broke the silence. I'm leaving you, Mother. I don't hate you. In fact, I love you even now. But your lies, your cheating have ruined us. Maybe one day I will forgive you. Maybe even come back into your life, but for now, I can't say I want you in it. Christina just sat there and nodded. She heard her daughter go to her room, gathering her thing. It wasn't much, just some clothes. The hotel will offer me room and board until I find somewhere permanent since I've been a good manager there for over 3 years. I can save up for a house then, but I can't say when you will hear from me again. Goodbye, mother. And with that, Christina could do nothing but watch as the last person her lies hurt walked out of her life. She thought back to the recklessness of her youth, the stupidity of it all, and what it cost her in the end. She looks at the reflection in the mirror and speaks a single word to her reflection. Fool. 4 years later, a proud Kevin and April Smith watched their children graduate from their local college. Both watched their kids in pride as they walked across that stage. Both celebrated and cheered as hard as they could. They smiled at their daughter as she walked and accepted her master's degree in arts, the smiley face with beautiful artwork across its face. A piece sings to the audience. They laughed as their son cartwheeled across the stage, only to do the kid and play dance with the dean. When it was over, the family left the venue and went to the restaurant reserved for them all. As the family was laughing and toasting the twins' success, Kevin could not help but look at his family, his worth, his legacy, his treasure. Something that once upon a time was unlikely to him. When Tara tapped his shoulder, she asked him, "Dad, are you okay?" In his mind, he saw that little 9-year-old girl who was worried about her dad because he was in the garage all day and he cut himself. His baby girl. His. He then hugged her and spoke. "I'm fine, baby, and I'm so proud of you and thankful you and your brother are my children. I love you so much, baby." Tara attempted to avoid shedding her tears, but to no avail. "I love you too, Daddy. And we are here because we got the best dad in the world." And with that, the family celebrated not just the loving bond they had, but the treasure of having what so man had been denied or taken away from, the love of a family. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.